Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is Michael Stein. He is a business owner, entrepreneur, and host of the Longshot Leaders podcast. We're going to get into that, find out how you can connect with him. If you know any Longshot Leaders, you can send his way for his podcast. But since you're a podcast listener, search for it right now, wherever you're listening to this one. Longshot Leaders, check it out. Michael Stein. And if you want to learn more about Playful Humans, go to playfulhumans.com. We have a quiz there. We can find out your playful personality. You can join a community of other adults trying to rediscover the power of play. So go check it out, playfulhumans.com. Here we go.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Keep chasing the sunshine.
All right, now just the woohoos. All right, Michael, welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad to be here. How can you not be happy listening to that song? Who is that?
It's I have no idea. I got it off of a stock music site. They're called Pink Zebra, and I can't find out who it actually is.
They're great. I mean, they're fun.
Yeah, perfect for what
Love
we're
it.
doing. And I was going to ask you. I don't know where to put the emphasis on the syllable of your company name. So is it Abadak?
Well, Abadak is that's the incorporation name. That's just what we're incorporated under. So, and it's an acronym. It stands for a better atmosphere dedicated to all kind. So I wanted to get it. Yeah, thanks. I wanted to get something that no one could have. So it's just that's for our corporation. But my website for underneath that is tarpsplus.com. We have a big brand coming out next year, which is going to be called Bolo Tour, which has a line of outdoor gear that's very specialized, very unique, and that'll be coming out. So that's Abadak is the one that is incorporated and holds those companies.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. And then where can they find your Longshot Leaders stuff?
All right. Well, we're getting to the CTAs. I love it.
Yeah.
So, Longshot Leaders, they can just go to longshotleaders.com. And they can, check out the podcast and, about me and about everything from there.
Perfect. Now we got to start with the joke of the week. We didn't get that in there either.
I love this. You start with a joke. This is all like you like to eat dessert before the meal. This is great.
You can tell, right? Yeah. I do the podcast in reverse. That way you can get all the good stuff up front.
Yeah.
So the joke of the week is brought to you by Shrooms. This is a new shoe line I came up with for drug dealers because they're always tripping. Shrooms
nice.
today. Okay. A perfectionist walked into a bar. Apparently the bar was not set high enough.
Oh, I love it. Oh, very good.
Do you have a joke?
The joke I gave you when you ask everybody to be on your show, you're going to give them a joke, right? So the joke I gave you was a Howie Mandel joke. And it's just such a perfect, because every time I've been a comedian, off and on since I'm 19 years old. And when everybody says, oh, you're a comedian, tell me a joke. And I was like, I tell stories about my dysfunctional life. I was like, how the hell am I going to tell you about, it's like, well, do that, right off the bat, which is, comic, you give me a cocktail, we'll probably talk about it anyways. But the joke, right? So Howie Mandel has this perfect joke, and he said it back in the 80s. And somebody said, tell us a joke, right? And in like this, I don't know, was one of his go-tos. He says, two guys walk into a bar, which is really weird because after the first guy walked into it, you think of the second guy wouldn't. Which is just a perfect joke because it's just, one, it's two guys walk into a bar. Two, it's just like in your face, there's your damn joke. And three, it's witty. So I like that joke.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And it is a funny thing about comedy where the job of being a comedian is different than actually telling a joke. Those are kind of different. A street joke is a different skill set, or a joke you tell your friends or your kids is different than a stand-up comedy routine where you're telling stories, engaging the audience, and you're trying to capture and get laughs in a different way or in a longer term way, which I find very interesting. And Howie Mandel is one of my favorites. Steve Martin also. I saw Howie Mandel live and he was just hysterical.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Did not expect that at all. And all the improv he does and stuff is so
he's
good.
Quick too. He's quick.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of a funny part about being a comedian, though, is people expect you to tell a joke. So tell us about how you got into that and your career now. So you have this company where you do tarps and other outdoor gear. But did you have like a real job? Did this end up in a weird, it sounds like an interesting kind of
Yeah.
hobby like me where I do sales training during the day or computer programming and really serious stuff. And then I go host game shows at night and
Okay.
have fun.
Oh, cool. Hosting game shows. That sounds fun. That's niche and original. So, all right. So I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version of, how it all mixes in with why I'm doing a podcast, Longshot Leaders, and my company and my background and all that. So I do a podcast because that's called Longshot Leaders with, people that overcome large obstacles to find success, because I consider myself like an underdog, a long shot. My grandmother escaped the Russian concentration camps on her way to America. My dad was a New York homeless street kid, became a multimillionaire, only to become homeless again. I had to sleep in the same room with my grandmother until I was 9 years old because, the only thing that my mom kept was a house in Encino. So we're like a big family in a rich neighborhood that was poor. We're like the Encino Jubilees. So the only success I had had ADHD, dyslexia. I had health issues. I was put in for an all school at UCLA for special needs. I was just, a kid that had a lot of failures. And the only success I had was making people laugh at me or making people laugh in general. So that was my first bit of success. But then I saw the movie Rocky, which I was inspired like most kids, I was 10 years old. And I saw a guy like me, he's funny. He failed a lot, but he kept on getting back up and tried. He wasn't too smart, which I was a terrible student and I had learning issues. But the only difference between Rocky and myself is that he was physically fit. So then from that moment on, I said, I'm going to be like Rocky and become physically fit. So then by the time I was 16, I became a fitness trainer, had success with that. And then I said, when I graduate high school, I'm not going to go to college. I want to be an entrepreneur, an actor, and a comedian. So my tutor said, hey, you might want to think about something else because, not everybody's meant to do what they want to do. Maybe you should work with your hands. So I said, all right, screw you. Started a business a week after I graduated high school and I failed miserably. Waited 6 months, did stand-up comedy. I was 19 years old then and did stand-up comedy and I did great. I said, wait, if I could bring all these people here and I can make people laugh, maybe I could do a nightclub, a dance club. It was very big in the 80s. Within 6 months, nice. I became the number one nightclub promoter in my age bracket in Los Angeles. And that became a big business for me. And that kind of set my trajectory of success, that I never had before. And then I decided, after several years of that, I'm going to drop that business. I started acting when I was in the nightclub business. My first real acting job was playing Dirk Diggler in the Dirk Diggler Story, the Paul Thomas Anderson short film, which became Boogie Nights, which I appear in as well. And I said, I'm going to do what he did. So became a filmmaker and did documentaries on nightclubs and the raves, the history of raves, went around the country. And then I said, I'm going all in, dropped my business, became a production assistant to learn production. And I did that for 3.5 years. And then I made a short film, award-winning short film, won tons of awards, almost, made second pass live action short category for Academy Awards, got bought by HBO, got me close to a movie deal. After 2 years of development hell, no movie deal. I was broke. I was in debt. I needed to be an entrepreneur again. And then I said, but I still want to make a movie, but I don't have any money. So I said, screw Hollywood. I got to get my own money. I started a business, this business I'm in now. Within 6 months, I made $500,000. And then I wrote, directed, produced, and acted in a movie called Love Hollywood Style. And I acted across Faye Dunaway, 2-time Academy Award winner Faye Dunaway, Andy Dick, Coolio, tons of actors that you saw in it. Almost bottomed out the business I created. And then this is the Reader's Digest version, but I said to myself, I'm going to have to seek, and this is what your show is kind of about. It's like, I'm going to have to seek opportunity versus passion. I will stick to my passion. I'm going to still do stand-up comedy because I don't have to, that's free, but I'm going to grow this business because I want to start a family. I've been through a tour de France of like Hollywood and entertainment industry like you could not believe. It was just, tough business. So I turned that business into over $100 million business. And I continue to do the same thing today. And that's why if I already do a podcast, I'm going to do it as somebody that's like learned how to fail and succeed. And there's so many more stories in there that I could tell you that would be jaw dropping, but that's pretty much the Reader's Digest version of why I do a show called Longshot Leaders. Cause I'm interested in people that have overcome large obstacles, had a tour de France of like ups and downs and, eventually learn how do they succeed over those, problems that they had.
Yeah, I love that. And I can definitely relate, although I think we came to it from opposite sides. So I always kind of make the joke like I'm a middle class white guy from middle America. Like I check no boxes. I have no adversity. I had a great childhood. My parents were middle class. Like the only thing we complain about is they wouldn't buy us a Nintendo when we were kids.
Yeah.
They said, get out and play, which was great advice. But now my brother and I suck at video games to this day. I still can't do it. But that's not the kind of adversity that you're talking about, which I think is interesting because I still had to learn all those lessons the same way. I still had to decide what my passions were going to be, where I was going to invest my time. My dad always encouraged us to be entrepreneurs, but that doesn't mean that you're set up for success either. You still have to figure it out the hard way. And I've had to do a lot of things to pay the bills. And I've never had less than 2 jobs at the same time my whole career. And so I totally relate to what you're saying, especially with the stand-up comedy, because when I do game shows and stuff, it's largely for fun. But I figured out in my 20s that if I DJ'd in bars and clubs and hosted karaoke nights and stuff, that I could go and I could make somewhere between $50 and $200 to go out for the night. I get to meet all of the girls because I'm up on stage and I don't spend money. So I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer.
Right.
I'm getting paid to do something that other people are paying to do. This is a great life hack here. And I feel like comedy and some of the other stuff that you were talking about there was for you too, that you get to meet cool people, you get to work with cool people. And even if that's not your career, you found a way to find happiness and other benefits outside of just money in those things. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. I mean, when I became successful with my second time around with this business I'm in now, and it had, uber success monetarily, and then they gave me a moniker in this industry, with Hurricane Katrina and, Florida have all those hurricanes. Well, I bought out the country and I covered all those houses on top with blue houses. And they started calling me Hurricane Mike. My dad was known as the calculator kid back in the 70s. It's a long story, but he sold when calculators became popular, they became small. And I said, I wanted to say, can we forget that silly Hurricane Mike? I always like the Happy Gilmore. I'm like, can you just take that entrepreneur statue and can you maybe give me I'd rather be a filmmaker, or an actor, or a comedian, right? But you take what you can get. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur as well. So I guess I wasn't the calculator kid like my dad, but I was Hurricane Mike. And that, the Rolling Stones, you can always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Yeah. So tell me about the movie, because I find the Love Hollywood style very interesting. And you kind of mentioned it in there, but I have a feeling there's a lot more work and story to this. So you got a lot of big people in it. This is a serious project. How much was it your story from the beginning, or how did you find it and get it made? What was that movie story like?
So when you make a short film, how you get a big job in Hollywood, how you get to make movies is that one of the most common paths is you do a short film and then produce, and it does well in film festivals and it gets bought and it gets recognized. And then people say, what else you got? Meaning, what other screenplays do you have as far as an auteur? So I gave them my other screenplays. I had 4 or 5 at that point. And one they really liked was about underground gambling casinos in Los Angeles, which I did because I did nightclubs and I did underground gambling casinos when I came back after I did my documentaries to my second round of nightclub promotions. So I produced these things and it was crazy, times. And I got close to a movie deal, but it didn't happen. Trimark Pictures, it fell through, people change, companies. Yeah. And so then I said, screw you guys. I'm not going to make a movie about that because I'm going to keep my back pocket because that's something I'm going to make a movie that no one would let me make. I'm going to make something that I wanted to make since I was a kid with some friends. And I wanted to make something like Kentucky Fried Movie meets American Beauty, something that was serious, but something that was crazy and wacky and funny, and esoteric that, screw it. I'm going to pay for it. It was going to be a home movie. Yeah. But then with the disease of a filmmaker, it gets bigger and bigger. So then I was like, oh, we can get this actor for this role. I get Stephen Tobolowsky, Ned Ryerson from Groundhog Day. Oh, I want him to play the devil and the CEO of the film industry. It's all about film dysfunctionality in film Hollywood. And there's 4 vignettes like Kentucky Fried Movie. And I was like, I had a friend that his lawyer was Faye Dunaway's, lawyer. And I was like, well, that's why I want to play God, That's typecasting, but I wanted to play God, mommy's dearest.
That's awesome.
So it just, and then, once, and my short film had popularity, but, in the industry, people looked at it and won awards. So like I was able to get names, but then I spent more money than I wanted to. I was starting my business, I was running out of this rented $800 a month shack in Sherman Oaks. So I'm running my business. I'm running this film production company out of there and making this film. And it almost broke me. Like, I have the ADHD, so I could like do a lot of things at once. And I'm like, I take pride in that. I didn't know I had ADHD until like 6 years ago, but, you think this is just who I am and I'm proud of that. But, you just went crazy. It was a runaway train. It was really great though, because we finished it. We put in film festivals and won some awards. Didn't make any money because like a runaway train, an unmanaged production, the Vendy Pictures who bought it went BK, and they did that with a lot of films. So there's big lawsuit going on with them. And we're actually making a documentary about that film right now, about how crazy it was. So that's kind of like the Reader's Digest version of Love Hollywood Style.
Yeah, I love those interesting stories like that. You mentioned one other thing that I think we have in common is I found out I was dyslexic in high school. But it was kind of the opposite for me. So I was always a good student. Like I mentioned, I got, A's and B's. In middle school, I could get all A's without really even trying and stuff. And I got to high school and they have these like entrance exams, right? The standardized tests. Mm-hmm. And so I scored like the highest they'd ever had on the math and science portions. And I went over on the spelling. They were like, pick which word is misspelled, and I missed all of them. I'd never seen the words before, so I'm just guessing the one that was looked most misspelled to me. Like, that can't be right. Went 0 for 10, and they accused me of cheating. They said, if you can't read, how did you get the right answers for this other part of the test? And I was like, well, if I scored the highest in the class, who do you think I was cheating off of? Like, I can read, I just can't spell. And they put me in like a remedial reading class. And I was like, well, this is dumb. Like, I've always been an A student in English. I don't know why I would be there. So I ended up, getting diagnosed and taking speed reading classes and getting back into the advanced English classes. But I love how you talk about that in your background, because sometimes people stereotype you, right? And they're like, oh, well, you're either the smart kid or you're not a smart kid. And then they apply that to the rest of your life. Like it has any meaning. How you do in school has anything to do with how you succeed in life or how much happiness you can find. It's completely bunk in my opinion.
Well, what's really interesting about your story and that when the people that we interview all the time, and that is the yin and the yang of failure and success. If you've always had success and you've never had failure, there's a dynamic that happens and it's great. You probably have a comfortable life, and everything's, but you're not taking chances. You don't have the skill set of learning how to fail and learning that in your nervous system. So you probably have a modicum of success, but you're not living to your full potential. And the other end
you
of
get
the
imposter
spectrum,
syndrome too. I always tell that. That's what I have more than anything is you're like, well, this can't be that easy. Or what if I mess up, And
yeah,
I know some, minorities and stuff, you have to be careful with it. But I like, as like I said, a middle-class straight white guy in middle of America, like, if I don't fail, it's on me. Like I have this imposter syndrome that like, I should be successful. I had this head start. I have all of these advantages. Like, what am I going to do with it is as much pressure as anything, I think, not to minimize other people's issues, but we all have head trash, right?
Right. And the importance of the yin and yang of failure and success and owning that. And really putting it in your nervous system, because you can conceptualize something, say, yeah, I understand it. It's like, no, it's meaning you're putting yourself out there to where you're going to be able to take not uncalculated chances, but take calculated chances more than you ever have, rather than understanding that you're playing it safe. Or on the other end, especially when you're failing and you've never succeeded, realize that you need to put yourself out there to try to get that bit of success, whether it's laughter or physical fitness. And then the crescendo happens, just the second time of any kind of success for somebody that's consistently saying, I've been a failure forever, I can't really grab on any success. You only need two small ones,
yeah,
and it doesn't have to be even big ones, but the both are so important. And that's why probably you've had great success when you found out how you had that problem, because you weren't like 10-0.
Yeah. Once you realize that there's a reason for it and then there are workarounds. So really what happened to me, I think is kind of an interesting story too, is like spell check came out right after that. And as soon as I could spell check in college, I started getting A's on all my English papers instead of C's. And you're like, oh, wow, well, I'm not an idiot. It's just they were grading on something that doesn't matter. They were grading on spelling, not the content of the essay.
Right.
And when I had more time to read on my own, and it wasn't like at this pace, now I read faster and more books than most people. I can easily read a book in a week, and I read, dozens a year. But it's not like on a timed standardized test. Right? If you ask me to read 2 pages of paragraph in 5 minutes and answer questions on it, I'm going to freak out and stress and start worrying about things. And I think it's totally different when you get out into the real world.
And the beauty of like speed reading, like remember back in the 70s, they had Evelyn Wood speed reading, and what the concept is.
To do that.
Yeah. So they take, you don't have to know how to read the whole the word correctly. You need to just look at the concept of the word, and then the word, it becomes, you're reading so fast as long as the comprehension of what that word is. So you're not recognizing every letter in the word, you're recognizing the word for itself.
The word itself. Yeah. Exactly. And I think also with spell check, just, for anybody else that happens to be listening and struggling with this, because I've met a lot of people, I ended up just memorizing all the words. So in English, you can't really learn how to spell because all the rules like I before E except after, well, that's BS. That never works. I've tried that every single time and I get it wrong. But if you see the word correctly enough, if you can get it close enough that spell check guesses, then you go, oh, that's how it's spelled. And you can kind of memorize all the words that you use on a regular basis. And it's amazing. I love what you said about failure though. And I wanted to ask you a follow-up question about how you exited some of these businesses, because I think there's a stigma around this and things that people don't talk about a lot either. So, I've sold businesses for a few $1,000s and called that a win. And like, hey, just take the equipment and the hard goods and I'll get out of this thing and I'll go do something else with that money. I've had other ones where I just quietly shut down and it didn't cost anything and nothing wrong with that. I moved on to something else too. How do you think about that as failure or maybe not even failures, as just I'm moving on to something else? Because I don't think enough people talk about ending a business or transitioning or pivoting to something else that they should. Everybody talks about starting a business.
Right. It's kind of like a stock, so basically my first business, it didn't make any money, or my real, when I was 18 years old, I just didn't, there was nothing to it. There's no goodwill. So I just did for a couple of weeks. So my nightclub business, I could have probably sold that, but I didn't know how back then. It was like nightclub promoter. It's almost like you're the talent. It's like an actor. You can't really sell somebody you're acting. You got to be you. So that's what the nightclub business. Outside of the goodwill and the nightclub itself and the promotion and the mailing list and all that. But the business I really got into that really can be sold, that I've never thought about selling it. I'm a long-term player. Luckily, I could segue, and I've been segueing that business into like a big thing. It's constantly evolving. There's the core products, which is just so funny when you hear it. It's just tarps, but we're segueing that particular product into something that's kind of revolutionary for that industry, similar to the way Yeti defined the cooler. Yeah. So we're doing that, and I will keep that business, forever, or probably until, I want to really make a big exit and be a long-term player. So I like the long-term play. These guys, because it's so hard. You work the hardest when you first start a business. Then everything's rolling. I couldn't do a podcast when I started this business. I did that actually. I did a film and it almost killed me. I was like,
yeah.
It's crazy. So, I'm a long-term player, but I talk to a lot of people that they love the art and skill. They're so good at it. They love to start that business, get it rolling, and then sell it, and then move on to serial entrepreneurs.
I'm with you. I think it depends on the type of business and the lifestyle you want, right? I've always been kind of more interested in starting things too. But if it's a passive income business, there's no reason to sell it. You can funnel that into other things or let it evolve into other things, which I think is interesting too, because I've done that with my performing career, as I hear that you have too. It might comedy might be a tool that you use, but that doesn't mean you have to be in comedy the whole time. You can go into film, you can write, or you can do other things that podcasts that we both do that are free, and there's nobody stopping you from making a podcast. So, you can go and do it for fun if you want. Wanted to shout out your websites again, tarpsplus.com and longshotleaders.com. But before we wrap up, is there anything left on your bucket list? What's on your fun bucket list that you still want?
Sure. So, like I said, we're launching a huge product line next year. So, that'll be big monetarily, the fun adventure, with that. It's going to be a very adventurous product. Then now that my daughters are getting a little older, they're like, Dad, we're going out this weekend. It's like, okay, well, that's why I started a podcast. I said, got a little more time there. I'm starting to pick up stand-up comedy again at the end of the year. That's something that, when all else is ended for me, I'll be that old dude at the Comedy Store or whatever. And I'll be like, who's that old guy doing stand-up? I'm like, oh, it's Michael Stein. He's a weird guy. That'll probably be me. I'll be the old fart doing stand-up. So, but as far as the next 3 to 5, product launch, documentary coming out on my crazy film, Love Hollywood Style, and stand-up comedy. And that's it. Nothing's changed. Entrepreneur, actor, and comedian. Filmmaker. Nothing's changed.
Living the dream, though. I love it, and that's why I was so excited to talk to you today. I think a lot of good lessons for people on this one. Before we go, do you want to play a game?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I'm spinning our wheel of games. There are 10 games that it could land on, and you got Survey Says. Survey Says is pretty easy. You've seen it before. We asked 100 people a question. Your job is to guess one of the top ones on the board here. So name a device some people just can't figure out how to work.
Dildo. No.
That's a great answer. Not on our top 5.
It depends on how old they are. Remote control. You ever silly, like 75%? It's like, no, you touch that button right there.
Remote controls on there. D player, VCR on there as well.
I don't have a sensor, so you say device, I'm automatically going to think something. Yeah, I'll just was that the only one? You want to ask me?
I'm sure a lot of people do not know how to use that one. So that was a good answer.
There you go.
Okay, at a party, name something you might offer to help the host or hostess do.
Well, I'm a nice guy. Help them clean up, I guess.
There you go. Number 1 answer. Serve drinks, set up, cook or greet people on there as well. Name a kind of place where you hate to be seated next to a baby.
Well, a restaurant, because babies are just like the human petri dishes. It's thrown up. They got diarrhea. They're just,
reaching over the booth and coming onto your side.
Yeah. They have no sensory too. They stick their nose in your ear. Like, excuse me, can I eat my soup?
You got it. Number 2 answer. Number 3 was airplane. I'm surprised that was number 3. Number 1, movie theater was number 1. So nice job. You went 3 for 3. We give you a free 30-second commercial here. Any asks or gives for the audience? How can we help you?
You were so kind. You did it for me in the beginning. Anybody that has a long shot story, anybody that, I don't care. It does not monetary. People think, well, I'm not, we had somebody that was on the show, it was, they were from 12 years old to 24. They were homeless. And then they became, they got a house, they got a nice job, and that was like no man's land, So I look for a screenplay. Anybody that's life is like overcome large obstacles to find success. I want to have you on the show. So just contact us at longshotleaders.com and let us know what your long shot story is. And that's it.
That's right. And if you happen to need a tarp, tarpsplus.com as well. But check out Longshot Leaders and the Longshot Leaders podcast since you're a podcast listener. That's Michael Stein. And thank you so much for being on the show here. Again, if you want more information on Playful Humans, it's playfulhumans.com. It's pretty easy to remember. There's a quiz you can take there, find out your playful personality in a BuzzFeed style quiz, or join the community. Other adults rediscovering the power of play, trying to live our best lives and have some fun. So all good things there. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up or a review on the podcast, and we will see you next week. Have a good one.
Good.
Keep on chasing the sunshine and go out and play.
Go play, everybody.